Hi, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com. Today we're going to check out the new 3-rail O-scale SD45 diesel from Lionel. Alright, so let's start things off with a little bit of history on the real SD45. The SD45 is a 6-axle diesel-electric locomotive built by EMD between 1965 and 1971. The SD45 had a 645 E3 20-cylinder engine generating 3,600 horsepower. A total of 1,260 SD45s were built before they were replaced by the SD45-2. The SD45 kind of had some good and bad aspects to it. On the one hand, it produced 600 more horsepower than its predecessor, the SD40, but on the other hand, many railroads felt that the extra power wasn't worth it because the prime mover ended up being so powerful that it would often break its own crankshaft. This flaw, however, ended up being something of a blessing because EMD wound up redesigning the engine to fix this problem, and that improved design became the basis of the exceptionally reliable 710G engine, which became a cornerstone of EMD's future locomotives. Now, there's a popular belief that the SD45 was a gas guzzler, but in actuality that wasn't quite true. It did consume quite a lot of fuel when sitting at idle, but when in operation with a train behind it, the SD45 produced more power per unit of fuel than its less powerful counterpart, the SD40. Now today there are many SD45s that are still in service, but they are slowly being phased out of service or scrapped as time goes on. Fortunately, there are many of these that exist in museums around the country, and some of those are operational. Alright, now let's talk about Lionel's rendition of the SD45. This model was offered in Lionel's 2016 Volume 2 catalog, and these things shipped in the fall of 2017. Now, this is a newly tooled model, and because of that, Lionel is offering road name specific details. Now, these things were offered in 5 different road names. There's the Union Pacific that we have here, there's Southern Pacific, Southern, Penn Central, and Great Northern, and like I said, each of those has road name specific details, which is always cool. Oh, by the way, if you're a newcomer to the hobby and you don't understand what I mean when I use the phrase road name specific details, let me take a moment and explain what that's all about. When a locomotive is manufactured and sold to the various railroads around the country and around the world, each railroad will invariably request that certain modifications be made to that locomotive so that it fits in with the rest of their fleet and how they like to run their engines. So as just a quick and easy example, for a Union Pacific SD45, they would want a low nose like you see here and a beacon light on top. On the other hand, for a Southern SD45, they wanted to have a high nose on the engine and no beacon light. Now, historically in the O-gauge hobby, and especially when it comes to Lionel, we haven't seen a whole lot of road name specific details. And the reason is because the tooling needed to manufacture one of these models is very, very expensive. And so in order to make it economical to produce the model, and in order to maximize profits, they would make a single tooling and then just slap a whole bunch of different road names on that model. And that used to be okay back in the day. But nowadays, 3-rail modelers are a lot more demanding when it comes to prototypical accuracy. And so, for example, nowadays if someone buys a Southern SD45, they don't want to see it come with a low nose and a beacon light. So in recent years, manufacturers have started to offer road name specific details on their models. MTH has been doing it for a number of years. Atlas has been doing it. Atlas is really, really good at it. And now, over the last few years, Lionel has gotten into the game. Now, the way they do it and still make it profitable to produce the model is that they have a master tooling for the SD45 in this case, and then they have several interchangeable pieces of that tooling that can be easily swapped out, thus allowing them to produce some road name specific details for different road names. And so in that way, they're able to keep the tooling costs down and yet still satisfy customer demands. Anyway, let's go over some stats on this model. The length of the engine is right at 16 3/4 inches. The weight is 5 pounds, 3.5 ounces. This engine has 2 pounds of pulling power, which is pretty good, and the minimum required curve needed to run this engine is 0.54. On the inside, you'll find this engine is driven by two large flywheel motors. There's a fan-driven smoke unit for the smokestack, and then you've got the electronics for legacy rail sounds and legacy command control. There are three ways to operate this engine. The preferred method is to use Lionel's legacy command system, as that will give you access to all of the advanced features on the model. However, you can also run this engine using Lionel's classic TMCC command system, or you can run this engine conventionally with just a transformer and some track. As we zoom in for a closer look, here is the front pilot on the SD45, and as you can see, it looks great. We've got lots of separately attached MU hoses and so forth. We've got a separately applied metal coupler cut bar right here. In the middle, there's the electro coupler that can be thrown from the legacy or TMCC remote. Up here, we've got this nice fine wire hand railing. We've got a drawbridge right here that can drop down. And just so you know, the purpose of the drawbridge is so that when multiple diesels are connected together in a train, the crew can walk back and forth between those units without having to risk falling down in here and getting run over by the train. And then right here, we've got a metal safety chain. One cool thing about this engine is that on the front and back, it has what Lionel calls kinematic pilots. And they've been doing this for a few years now. I think I've talked about this before, but I'll go ahead and explain it again. Historically, O-gauge engines have the pilot attached to the truck so that it turns with the truck. And while this is very unrealistic, the reason they do this is so that the engine will be able to negotiate the tighter curves that are typically associated with O-gauge layouts. But in recent years, people have demanded more realism, and so in an effort to satisfy that demand, Lionel has come out with these kinematic pilots. And the way they work is that they're no longer attached to the truck, which is good. They're attached to the body of the engine, but they're on this little swivel point so that the pilot can actually move a little bit as the train goes around tight curves. So that when you go around the curve, it moves out a little bit, and then when you straighten out again, it snaps back and looks more realistic. And so that way, it's kind of a nice balance between O-gauge necessities and having it look more realistic. Anyway, moving up, we've got safety tread on all the walkways of this engine. On the hood here, we've got lots of separately applied grab irons and so forth. There's a nice UP logo here. The paint job on this engine is perfect. Right up here, we've got clear plastic inserts in the windows and add-on windshield wipers on the outside. We've got lighted number boards here, and then in the middle is an operating headlight. Moving around the side, here we've got some nicely detailed die-cast metal truck side frames, and above that we've got a legible builder's plate. In the middle we've got the fuel tank and so forth, and we do have some nice hand-painted detailing right here. Here on the back of the engine, a lot of this is pretty much identical to what you've already seen on the front, including the nicely detailed kinematic pilot, the electro coupler that can be thrown from the legacy or TMCC remote, the drawbridge, the metal safety chain, and then up here we've got lots of separately applied metal grab irons, we've got operating marker lights, lighted number boards, and an operating backup light. Looking down the side, we've got a fine wire handrail running the entire length, and there's one on the other side as well. We've got a good looking brake wheel. There's lots of molded in detailing going on all over the place, and then we've got some see-through metal vents up here. As we approach the cab, here's the back door. It does not open, but it is nicely detailed nonetheless, and the same goes for the steps down here that lead up to the door. The interior of the cab is illuminated, and that light does turn off when the engine starts moving. There are also two hand-painted crew figures in there. You probably can't see them very well right now, so let me go ahead and put a light in there, and there we go, there's one of them. On the other side of the cab on the front, we've got a door, and again, this door does not open, but it is very nicely detailed. And then here's a look down the other side of the engine, which looks pretty much the same as the side you've already seen, although of course there are a few minor differences here and there. I want to give you this quick down angle view of the deck so that you can see some of the nice detailing going on. Here's that safety tread that I talked about. It's all over the place. We've got these nice drainage holes in all the steps. And then right here you can see some really nice molded in details with this access panel. On the top of the engine, on the hood here, you can see a sand fill cap and an add-on metal grab iron. Right here we've got a nice looking horn, and then right behind the horn is an operating beacon light. Moving back, you'll find lots of add-on metal lift rings, and then right here we've got the smokestack, and there is a fan-driven smoke unit down in there. And as always, to add smoke fluid to the smoke unit, you simply pour the smoke fluid directly down the stack. Just beyond the smokestack, we've got a couple of fans, and these fans do have free-spinning blades on the inside. And then, of course, we've got more of these separately applied metal lift rings. And then toward the back, we've got more fans, more metal lift rings, and a metal grab iron back here. The panel on the back here lifts out like that, and it is held down by magnets. And inside, right here is the compartment for the optional 9-volt battery, which, by the way, you don't need if you're going to run this thing in command control mode. Right here is one of the 2 motors. And then right here, we've got some controls for the engine. We've got the run program switch, the Odyssey speed control on-off switch, and the smoke unit on-off switch. And then right here is the master volume control. Here's a look at the underside of the engine. I'm not sure if you can see it or not, but the bell for the engine is right over here. There are 4 pickup rollers, 2 per truck. There are 2 traction tires on the inner axle of each truck for a total of 4. On each truck, the inner 2 axles are driven. The outer axle is free spinning. Right here is the sensor for the Lionel LCS sensor track if you use one. And then right here is the speaker for the sound system. Alright, the last thing we're going to do before we start this thing up is BFIMO, best feature in my opinion. Well, my favorite feature on this engine is actually the horn. It sounds great, and to be honest, it's quite startling. The first time I powered this engine up and blew the horn, it really made me do a double take. And then I thought, hey, that's the point of a horn or a whistle on an engine, is to get your attention, and this horn certainly does that. Now, of course, I'm not an expert, but the horn on this engine sounds like it's not too far off the mark from the horn on the real SD45s. But, of course, I am not a horn whistle audiophile, so I'm sure some of you guys might disagree with that. But I don't care. It sounds great to me, and so for that reason, it's my favorite feature. All right, now let's go ahead and start this thing up.
This is the dispatcher. Do you copy? I copy that. Over. Okay, start her up. Stand by for track orders. Yes, sir. Start up and stand by. Out.
Let's check out the horn, and like I said in BFIMO, this thing's got a great horn. I mean, if I was sitting on the tracks and I heard this horn, it would scare the bejesus out of me, so let's go ahead and try it out. Next, let's check out the bell. let's check out the crew talk sounds.
This is the dispatcher. Stand by. Over. Acknowledged. Waiting on a clear signal. Out. Dispatcher here. You're clear to pull. Over. Clear signal. Very good. Out. My fuel's full. Out. Dispatcher, we're ready. Is it okay to pull? Over.
All right, that about wraps it up for this review. As you've seen, this is a sweet engine that packs a lot of punch. If you're interested in purchasing one of these, the retail price is right at $650, which is not cheap, but keep in mind that if you go through a good Lionel dealer, you should be able to get a little bit of a discount off that retail price. And as always, if you're looking for a good Lionel dealer, try my favorite train store, which is Legacy Station. You can find them on the web at www.legacystation.com or give them a call at 770-339-7780. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time. To discuss this model or any other O-Gauge trains and to meet other O-Gauge modelers, check out the O-Gauge Railroading Magazine online forum at ogrforum.ogaugerr.com. All right, I've got a train coupled up behind the SD45, so let's go ahead and move it out. Or let's go backwards.